Good morning. We will pay attention to transactions with debtors and creditors today. A profit of 25% on cost price is maintained. Remember, if the profit is on cost price, then the cost price equals 100%, the profit 25%, and the sales price 125%. Received an invoice from Mansell Traders for goods purchased. So we bought new goods, so that will affect our inventory account, and we bought it on credit, so the double entry will be in the creditor's control. If trade discount is received, it means that we have to take the 18,000 and subtract 10% trade discount, and the reduced amount will be recorded in the books. We will not record any entry for the trade discount because the reduced amount, 18,000 minus the 1,800, will give us 16,200. And that 16,200 is the amount that we owe the creditors, and that is our purchase amount. The inventory account will increase on the debit side because inventory is an asset, and assets increase on the debit side and decrease on the credit side. So inventory will be debited with 16,200, and the creditor's control will be credited with 16,200 because creditors is a liability, and a liability increases on the credit side and decreases on the debit side. The word that I write in the creditor's control account is inventory to indicate that this double entry appeared in the inventory account. And in the inventory account, I will use the word creditor's control to indicate that the double entry was completed in the creditor's control account. Issued a cheque to Speedy Deliveries. So we've taken money out of the bank, so the one account will be the bank account, and we paid 200 for the delivery of the goods purchased. Now all the expenses that we pay from the time that we buy the goods until it's delivered to the property will be included in the cost price of inventory. So that means this 200 Rand was paid to deliver the goods to your premises, and therefore it will be recorded in the inventory account. The inventory account will be debited with the 200 because it increases the value of your inventory, and it means that inventory must increase on the debit side. So the actual cost price of these goods is the 16,200 that we paid for the goods plus the 200 Rand carriage to get it to your premises. And we will credit the bank account because we paid for the goods immediately. The bank account is credited because we will take the money out of the bank. A favorable bank balance will have a debit balance and will increase on the debit side and decrease on the credit side, and we've got less money in the bank. Issued a credit invoice to Carriage for 5,500. That means if we issue a credit invoice, we sold goods on credit, we sell to debtors, so this will be recorded in my debtor's control. I've sold goods, so I will have to credit the sales account. When we sell goods, we always complete two double entries. That means that I will use that cost price that was given at the top to calculate what is the cost price of the goods that we've sold. This invoice was issued for 5,400 after we deducted 10% trade discount. So don't deduct the trade discount now. It was already deducted to give us the 5,400. When we want to calculate the cost price, I will have to add back the 10% 100% because the cost price and the actual sales price without trade discount is connected. This entry will now be recorded in the debtors control account and in your sales account. The debtors control account is debited with the 5,400 because the debtors owe us more money. Debtors is an asset that increases on the debit side and decrease on the credit side. The sales account will be credited with 5,400. Sales is the income that increases on the credit side and decrease on the debit side. The account that was debited was your debtors control account. We will now calculate the cost price of this good so that we can complete the second double entry. The normal sales price is 100%. We allow 10% discount, so our credit sales price was 90% of the normal sales price. And they told us that this amount was 5,400. If I want to know what is the normal sales price, I will use the 5,400 times the one that I want, 100, divided by the one that I know, 90. So the one that I want, I put at the top, the one that I know at the bottom, and that will give me the normal sales price as 6,000 Rand. I have to work back to the normal sales price because when I bought the goods, I took the cost price of 100%, added 25% to the cost price to determine the normal sales price of 125%. So that means I have to use the normal sales price to work back to the cost price. So the 6,000 times the one that I want, divide by the one that I know, and that will give me 4,800 Rand. The cost of sales account will be debited with 4,800 because we paid the expense to be able to make the profit when we sold the goods. So cost of sales expense increases on the debit side and decrease on the credit side. We've taken the goods out of our inventory, so we have less inventory, so the double entry will be recorded in the inventory account. And inventory will be decreased on the credit side, and we will indicate that the double entry was completed in the cost of sales account. Issued a credit note for 90 to L. Zilliger for goods returned. If we issue a credit note, it means that we want to reduce the account of the debtor because they returned goods and they owe us less money. So the one entry will go on the credit side of debtors control to decrease the amount that the debtors owe us, and we want to reduce our sales, and sales are reduced by debiting debtors allowances. So it means that we will reduce the debtor on the credit side with the sales price of the goods that was returned, and we will debit debtors allowances. Debtors allowances is an expense that will decrease my profits, and expenses increases on the debit side, and we will indicate that the account credited was debtors control. Now we have to calculate what is the cost price of these goods, because when we sell goods, we do two double entries. One double entry at sales price and one double entry at cost price. When the debtors return goods, we also complete two double entries. The one double entry at sales price and the second double entry at cost price. A profit of 25% was made on the cost price, so the sales price equals 125%, and that equaled the 90 Rand on the credit note. If I want to calculate the cost price, the percentage that I want, 100, divide by the percentage that I know, 125, and that will give me 72 Rand. The cost of sales account must now be reduced with the 72 because we want to decrease the expense because these goods are not sold anymore. Cost of sales means the cost price of goods already sold. So if goods are returned, it was not sold, so it can't form part of the cost of sales expense. And we will show that the inventory account will be debited with this 72 Rand because the goods were returned. It was put back into the inventory, so my inventory increases on the debit side with a 72, and the account that was credited with a 72 was the cost of sales account. Issued a cheque for 2,700 after 10% discount was received. So the one entry will be in the bank because we issue a cheque, we pay the money to Menlyn Stores. If we pay money to them, it means that we owe them money, so they are a creditor. So we will have to record the double entry in the creditors control account. The creditors control liability will decrease on the debit side with the 2,700 that we paid, and we will credit the bank account because the money was taken out of the bank, so the money in the bank decreased with 2,700. The account debited was creditors control. On this cheque, discount was received, so we first have to calculate what is the discount received to complete the second double entry. If we paid the full debt, we would pay 100%. We received 10% discount, so we only paid 90%. And they told us that the amount that we paid is 2,700, so that equals the 90% that we paid. If we want to know what is the discount, we will take the percentage that we want to calculate, 10, divide by the percentage that we know, 90, times the 2,700, and that will give us a discount of 300 Rand. The creditors control account will be debited with a 300 Rand because we want to reduce our creditors with the amount that we paid and with the discount because we don't owe 3,000 Rand to the creditors anymore. The discount received account will be credited with a 300. Discount received is an income. Income increases on the credit side and decrease on the debit side. We debited the creditors control account with the 300 to reduce the creditors control. So the word that we write in discount received will be creditors control to indicate that this 300 was recorded on the debit side of your creditors control. Don't make the mistake to write the word bank here because this 300 did not go through the bank. Issued a receipt to P. Pelser in settlement of an account of 4,000 after 5% discount was allowed. First of all, we received money, so the money must be recorded in the bank. P. Pelser is a debtor. He will owe us less money, so his account will be credited. We don't receive the full 4,000. They say his account is 4,000 and we will first give him 5% discount before we will work out what is the amount that he must pay. So we will do a calculation to determine how much is the amount that we receive and what is the discount allowed. If he paid his total debt, he would pay 100%. The discount is 5%, so we only receive 95% of the total amount that he owes. They gave us the total debt as 4,000. If we want to calculate the discount, we will take the percentage that we want, 5, divide by the percentage that we know, 100, times the 4,000, and that will give me 200 Rand. If I want to calculate the amount received, I will take the one that we want to know, 95, divided by the one that we know, 100, and that will give me 3,800. The bank will be debited with the total amount received, 3,800, to increase the money in the bank, and we will credit debtors control to indicate that the debtors owe less money, so we decrease them on the credit side with the 3,800. We also have to credit the debtor with the discount because his account will decrease with the money received and with the discount of 200, so we want to reduce his account with 4,000 Rand. And we will debit discount allowed with a 200 Rand. Discount allowed is an expense. Expenses increase on the debit side and decrease on the credit side. So the discount allowed will be debited to increase the expense, and we will indicate that debtors control was credited because we decreased our debtors with a 200 Rand discount. Receive a dishonored cheque for 2,500 from the bank. This cheque was received from Carriage after 200 Rand discount was allowed. The dishonored cheque was for 2,500. That means the amount on the cheque is 2,500. The bank returned this cheque. They didn't pay out the money, so that means that the debtor owes us this money again, and we will increase the debtor on the debit side with 2,500. If the bank returned the cheque, it means that we don't have the money in the bank anymore, so we have to credit the bank with the amount on the cheque, 2,500. to indicate that this money is not in the bank anymore, and we decrease the amount of money in the bank. The debtors will also owe us this 200 Rand that we originally gave as discount, because if the cheque is not paid out, we will not give the debtor the discount anymore. So he owes us this 200 Rand discount, and we will have to credit the discount allowed account to indicate that discount allowed expense was decreased with 200 because we don't allow the discount anymore, and the debtors control account will be debited. At the end of the month, we will balance our ledger accounts to determine what is the total balance in the account on the last day of the month. Debtors is an asset, so the debit side must always be bigger. So I will add up the amounts on the debit side that will give me a total of 8,100. Then I take the 8,100 and I subtract the figures on the credit side, and that will indicate to me that the difference between the debit side and the credit side is 4,010. So that means that we have a balance at the end of the month of 4,010 that is written above the total, because when I add up all these figures, including the balance, it must give me the same total as I had on the debit side. On the first day of the next month, we will bring down the balance below the total on the opposite side. So we will indicate that the debtors will start with an opening balance on 1st of June with 4,010. If we look at the creditors control, creditors is a liability. Liabilities will always be bigger on the credit side. So I add up the credit side 16,200, subtract the figures on the debit side, and work out what is the difference between the debit and the credit side. And that will be my balance. If I add up now and I use all three figures, I will get the same total. I will bring down that balance on the opposite side below the total on the first day of the next month.